Alright, so got a video here, and before I get started, yeah, it's been a little bit, I know. Short rundown is restructuring at my job has caused some issues with my schedule and so on and so forth. It's been kind of rough recently. To top it off, I broke my other tablet by accident. I dropped it on the floor on its screen. It shattered, so I had to get a new one. And my internet was off for a while for no reason. I still haven't figured out why there was an internet outage or anything. Maybe they were doing maintenance, but that was just kind of stupid. But anyways, it's back on now, so we got a video here. It's called Antinatalism is Wrong. Get over it. By somebody named Ethy? Ethy? I don't know how to pronounce that name. So, okay. Let's find out why antinatalism is wrong. Ugh. Shall we?
What's up, guys? It is Ethy, and in this video,
Oh, sorry, it's Ethy.
I'm going to be explaining why antinatalism is wrong. So, a lot of people have come at me for this position in the past, and it makes no sense because antinatalism makes no sense. Now, a lot of antinatalists have said a lot of nasty things to me, and I just want to make it clear that I have no animosity towards any of you. I think that you're wrong and would prefer you be civil, but I love the passion that antinatalists have, and I think it's a very strong community that likes to give its takes on things, and I think this is beneficial, because every time you speak your mind, you leave open the door for your mind to be changed. At least I hope that's the mentality we all have in these philosophical debates.
In a way, you're kind of right, but I've yet to come across anything that has changed my mind yet about this position, so maybe it'll be the one, I don't know. Because I wouldn't mind dropping it. If you got some hardcore evidence to support your case, some hardcore data somewhere that's like, hey, you've been looking at this all wrong, my dude, this whole time. And judging by the 72 dislikes, I doubt it, but who knows? Maybe you'll convince me. Because I wouldn't mind. It's not exactly a view I enjoy having. It's not exactly great to know that you were dropped into a war zone, that your survival is tenuous, and that you're on your way out. Everything you do is really just to negate some sort of positive quality of life, as Schopenhauer would say, which is, bad things as far as you're concerned. So, yeah, I wish I could word it better, but yeah, in general, yeah, if you could do it, go for it.
Now, straight out the gate, I want to establish the error a lot of antinatalists make, if not all of them. They think causing suffering or the degradation of values by having a child is bad, no matter how much well-being or fulfillment of values will take place from having said child.
Who is going to be getting their well-being fulfilled? Which party here? If it was a child, I don't think I'd be an antinatalist. Really. If it was like having a kid instantly guaranteed that their well-being would increase, not only theirs, but, the parents, I wouldn't be an antinatalist, but that's obviously not the case here on this planet, really. I really don't know what you're going with here. It's kind of weird.
I've only seen this arbitrary placement of negative value on suffering to the point where it matters.
Whoa, arbitrary placement of suffering? Arbitrary? Wait, what? Okay, fuck it. I'll give you the 24-hour challenge like I did Angry Vegan Cyclist. Don't eat, don't drink, don't sleep. Don't do anything, really. Don't jerk off, don't shower, don't brush your teeth. Just sit in a room and stare at a wall. All day. And then come talk to me about how suffering doesn't fucking matter at all. It's just some arbitrary thing we made up. I don't think that's the case. What, if I get a nail stuck through my hand? It's like, well, you can choose to just not feel the pain. Now, can I? I mean, what in the fuck? This is a weird way to lead off.
There's more than well-being justified by subjective morality. I will expound on this more in an upcoming video, but long story short, subjective morality is anti-science because it is just based on your feelsies, not...
What? I don't think morality and science really have much of an overlap, do they? Okay.
Any laws or objective facts, and subjectivism and things alike is the reason why philosophy makes barely any progress, and objectivism and things alike is why science and mathematics and things like that makes rapid progress. Science accepts the foundations of things and moves forward.
Yeah, and that's what my philosophy is based on. I like to think so, unless you got some other like you can go a bit lower. I feel like I've hit bedrock here. What's the foundation of life? It's pretty simple, really. Okay, so once you're here, you basically just spend your days trying to stave off suffering or negate it to the best of your abilities and try to stave off your eventual death. Two things are really not necessarily fun, but stuff you have to do, in a sense. So, yeah, I don't know. What else is there? I think it was Spinoza who said the essence of man is the conatus, which is basically your survival drive. That's basically what we are. That is the core of us. That's why you get all these wild-ass religious beliefs and so on and so forth. That's what we are. We're just survival machines. So, I don't know. Am I missing something here? That seems pretty fundamental to me. You can't get more fundamental than that, as far as I'm aware of. Unless there's maybe someone can post in the comments. Maybe there's something more fundamental, but I've yet to come across it. So open my mind, expand my borders if you can.
Gaining more knowledge. I am in the business of gaining more knowledge. I am in the business of progressing philosophy, morality in particular, and that's why I reject more.
Morality? I mean, isn't morality more of your own personal take on what is good and bad? In a way? Like here in the US, it's not considered a morally bad thing to mutilate men's genitals? Or in Africa, it's not considered a morally bad thing to mutilate females' genitals and so on and so forth? Like, it sort of depends on your own personal taste, doesn't it? How's that really objective? Maybe I'm confusing something. I don't know. It doesn't seem right.
Moral subjectivism. You moral subjectivists bicker about the foundations and disagree on what's right and wrong instead of.
I don't know who these people are. I've yet to come across them in antinatalist circles. About the closest thing we got to some bickering are the eugenicist antinatalists who think only certain types of people should breed, like the rich or this sort of race or this sort of ethnic group, versus people who say no one should breed given the guarantees of life. That's about the only bickering I've really come across as far as the antinatalist community is concerned with internally. Haven't come across much else. Maybe there's like a random ass little snippet of arguments here and there, but I can't honestly think of one. Maybe environmental reasons. Really isn't that. No, I think suffering and the alleviation of suffering is at the foundation of this whole thing, in case you missed it. And when you realize that there's no way to avoid that once you're alive, it kind of leads you down this road. It's like the fundamental tenet.
Coming to an objective standard, and this is why you make virtually no progress in the discipline of philosophy. If morality is subjective, you have no reason to agree as long as you feel differently. If morality is objective,
it really has nothing to do with my feelings. Like, I don't like a world where these are the guarantees. Okay? Let's get that straight. It has nothing to do with my feelings. I don't like that. But yet I'm still going to be out here talking about it. I don't necessarily like talking about antinatalism all the fucking time either, but I still do. It's independent of what I feel about it because it's a right thing as far as I can tell. If I'm concerned about suffering, what's the best way to go about, preventing more of it? It's to either to encourage people not to have kids and to not have kids myself, really. That's basically all I can do. Because once you're here, you're fucked. It's as easy as it gets. It really has nothing. I mean, I guess my feelings could be involved in it because I don't really like the life game necessarily. It's a war zone, but I mean, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, nobody likes suffering, and everyone tries to avoid death within the best of their abilities, and if they don't avoid death, it's because they got to the point where their options in life is so greatly diminished that they have no other recourse. It'd be better for them to die than to, continue living in a diminished state, like whatever it may be, whether it's real or perceived. I mean, there's countless examples, but I just don't know what's really so necessarily subjective about it.
You have to agree or you're objectively wrong. And that agreement is the foundation for progress because once we agree on the standard, we can move forward and progress philosophy like we progress science.
I don't think we need to progress something where the answer's been found. Where are you going to progress to? What other sort of truth are you looking for? You're looking at the truth. Philosophy is looking at life as it is. It's like the study of life, I think, is what it actually boils down to. And what more is there to say about it? You're a machine driven to survive in a world that is hostile. That's going to grind you up anyways. I mean, you can get all flowery and use all sorts of crazy terms if you want, but that's the case. That is like anybody with with a good set of eyes or any sort of sensation could be able to tell you this. If they were being brutally honest with themselves. But I think that's a problem. We love lying to ourselves because it just kind of feels good, I guess. It keeps this game going. We don't like things that go against life necessarily. And I'm speaking broadly, of course, but that's the way it works for most people, and there's a bunch of reasons for that, but we'll just plow through this video without bogging it down too much.
To be clear, we don't all need to agree on the standard of right and wrong to progress the discipline, but the more agreement there is, the more we can build on those agreements and better our understanding and have it be more than your capricious feelings. Also,
What does this have to do with my feelings, necessarily? What does this have to do with any antinatalist feelings? I think antinatalists are just more honest about their stance. This game sucks. All you do is avoid suffering and death, but they both find you anyways. So why continue to add to the tally? Fuck, in this universe there isn't even a tally mark for your casualty. You're just gone. So, I mean, fuck. Is it really so hard to get?
So, what I'm doing is not some foreign thing that's never been done before. Throughout history, brilliant people have looked at the objectification of science and the rapid progress it's making and applied it in other fields to mirror that progress.
Like what? Can you name one?
Namely, Isaac Newton and Leibniz established the objective fact which is calculus, which is now used in every branch of the physical sciences. That's how powerful and progressive establishing objective facts is. Why should objective facts be established in these disciplines, but not in what's arguably the most important discipline, morality?
Well, morality is more of a personal thing or a cultural thing. How are you going to get some sort of objectification in that, really? What?
Moral system is objective because I objectify value as being what's valuable. So it's an a priori argument that instantiates a law that says value is valuable. Whatever is conducive to what evaluators value, aka what sentient beings value, is valuable or good. Basically, since on the meta-ethical level, this is an a priori argument, basically just saying that value being what's valuable, the values of sentient beings are in the category of value definitionally, and a priori knowledge is knowledge that's basically true for logical reasons, so it's basically a tautology. It's as true as all red wagons being red is true, right?
I mean, yeah, duh. You can find out that things are good because you find them valuable. It comes before any sort of experience or understanding or any of that sort of shit. Like me wanting to eat something and me finding food that I enjoy to eat. Yes, I'm going to find that good. Whatever. Something to that effect. But at the same time, why are you using these big words if you're stumbling over them? I get it. I have problems talking too, but I don't go about finding the floweriest words trying to stroke my own penis with my fucking lexicon to try to make a point. Just get to the point. Yes, I understand sentient creatures have certain value sets because they find certain things that will enhance their power, like food, water, shelter, so on. And they'll also find things that will diminish their power, like, poison or, predators or, falling rocks, whatever the fuck, shit like that. They're going to find these things bad because they negate their survival prospects. They're going to find them not valuable. In fact, the opposite. So, yeah, duh. That's just kind of the way it is. It's like a car that values gasoline. It just needs it.
Good in any other way would be using good in a substandard way, as the most common conception of good is the basis of my objective morality. It is more than just your feelsies that are not conducive to any real scientific or philosophical progress.
If you're going to get to the point of what the fuck you're talking about here, I would love it. Okay? I really would.
Children can be conducive to what's valued by sentient beings overall. So having children can be moral. Value is valuable. This does not...
It would be a whole different ball game if having kids was valuable to the children if it enhanced their well-being. I mean, you could also argue that well-being isn't a consideration for the not born yet, but it is once they're here. So whose well-being are we looking out for here? Yours or your kids? Because if it was demonstrably proven that your kids would have an enhanced well-being over what you could have, then I wouldn't be an antinatalist. Pure and simple. But you can't. And the two objective negative guarantees in life, they're going to happen to them.
Not mean that negative value is worse than positive value is good. No, positive value is just as good as negative value is bad. So more positive...
How? Do you want to elaborate a little further on that? Because there's a lot of ways you could get taken out. A lot of horrible, brutal ways that are so bad, like I don't even want to really say them. But there's only so many ways that your well-being can be enhanced, if you want to look at it that way.
Value is better than less negative value. Suffering is just as bad as well-being is good. So more well-being is better than less suffering and vice versa.
Yeah, but the problem is here, if you want to go off what your standard is, well-being is very few and far between for a lot of people on this planet. Any sort of well-being that we would consider the standard here in the Western world, not found in a lot of places. So what's your point? Besides that, you not having your well-being constitutes you basically dying at some point. If it gets down to a certain point, you're dead. You can only have so much well-being to stay alive, but at a certain point, if it drops down too low, you're fucking toast. You experience a lot of suffering in the process as well. So, which is better? Having the best meal and orgy of your life, or starving and dying of bone cancer? Like, how bad does it have to get on this fucking planet for people to really actually pay attention to how good things can get? It can't nearly get as good as you think it can get. Okay, let's put it that way. That's what I'm trying to say. Because I've had some really good days in my life, like amazing days, but they pale in comparison to the worst days I've ever had, including injuries and shit like that, where it wasn't just like a great meal I had with friends, maybe getting laid later on that evening, whatever. That was fleeting, gone in a second. But, getting my foot fucked up, crushed basically, not being able to walk for a while, it fucking up my back, a lot of the muscles in there, it still affects me now. In fact, I might be getting like some sort of arthritis or something, or some joint problem, so I don't know what the fuck. I'll have to go to a doctor again to find out, but it's not fun. So, yeah, the negative effects in your life can last a lot longer than any sort of well-being you may have. Your well-being can be gone in an instant, whatever you constitute that as, which I'm assuming is some sort of, lack of suffering, I'm imagining. That's basically all well-being really is.
Keep in mind, though, suffering and well-being aren't the only things to consider, as the antithesis of what is valued can occur without evaluators even knowing it, so without them feeling suffering. So for example, if your girlfriend cheats on you and you literally never find out, that's still bad, and also what is valued can be accomplished without you feeling well-being.
I guess it depends on what type of relationship you're in, because there's all sorts of types, like open marriages, swingers, whatever the fuck. So it may not be a bad thing. It's just that, your girlfriend violated a social contract with you, so you consider that to be a bad thing. But you never found out that contract was violated, and she's still with you. So I don't know how that would necessarily be bad in a way. I don't know. I mean, maybe it opens the door for her to cheat more and eventually cause some heartbreak down the road. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a great thing, but I don't know if I can necessarily call that bad. Because it's not really, I don't know, it's not really necessarily hurting you in that example. And this is spoken from somebody who's had a girlfriend cheat on him before in the past. So, yeah, I mean, it sucks, don't get me wrong, but if I never found out about it and I was still with her, and maybe she told me years later or something, I'd be hurt about it, of course, but I don't know. It's one of those things, if you don't know, I don't think it's going to really bother too many people.
Suffering and the degradation of what is valued is bad, and well-being and the fulfillment of what is valued is good. If you try to bypass my objective morality by your feelings, I'll disregard you as needlessly being unscientific. And if you...
I'll disregard you as being needlessly unscientific. We're talking morality, though. Right? Like, what? Am I missing something? It's just your personal principles, really. Maybe cultural, but it's not really... How are you going to get some sort of scientific anything out of that? I don't know. I guess I'm being needlessly unscientific here. I have no fucking idea what he's just going off. Am I missing something? Are you just using big words to obfuscate the fact you don't have any real claim against antinatalism?
Try to bypass this by a different objective system. I'll disregard that system as not dealing with as many problems or anomalies as my system does.
And what exactly is your system? Like, you're running defense on some where no one's, running any offense against you, because I don't know what to attack. It's just a bunch of words. If I wanted to hear a priori a shitload of times, I'll just pick up the Critique of Pure Reason again and go through that. Or maybe Schopenhauer's World as Will and Representation. I'll go through that again if I wanted to hear that a million fucking times. Like, I don't understand what you're talking about here. What system are we going against? You run a defense for something I don't even know what it is.
Also, since my position is not solely based on my feelings, any appeals to emotion you guys will throw at me will fail miserably.
And what is your position? Exactly. We haven't got there.
People have gone as far as to say, oh, you're too young, when you're old and suffering, you'll feel differently. Well, actually, if morality is objective, even if I came to the conclusion that I wish I was never born, my feelings don't necessarily reflect what is actually right and wrong. What is reflexive of what's...
And what is actually right and wrong? I would love to know. Because if we're talking morals, and let me just type it in real quick. Let me get to morals. We'll get the definition. Give me a second. Alright, I paused the video so you didn't have to hear me click-clacking. Here's what the definition I got. It's from some place called diffin.com. Morals. Principles or habits with respect to right or wrong conduct. While morals also prescribe do's and don'ts, morality is ultimately a personal compass of right and wrong. And then we got here, flexibility. There's like a chart here. It says... There's also ethics in here too, which is nice. Because we believe in something being right or wrong. Usually consistent, although can change if an individual's beliefs change. So what the fuck what do objective and morality have to do with each other? Necessarily, really. It really doesn't.
Right and wrong is what is valued collectively by sentient beings. And the vast majority of sentient...
It's not valued collectively. I mean, in a sense, yes, but in a sense, no, too. Because, I don't know. Like, me valuing, like, say, a ham sandwich or something. Well, did the pig find a good time out of getting killed in a slaughterhouse to be ground up and then served on my plate? No. But I'm having a good meal. So, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And as far as it being good and bad and shit, yes, there's good things for everything. Like, power-enhancing stuff, like food, shelter, all the basics. And bad things, like what I listed before, which is namely suffering and death, which is what everything strives to avoid. But as far as, like, good and bad on a subjective level, that's kind of what we're dealing with in a sense. I mean, we're kind of just another object out here, but really, like, taking something like antibiotics or something, that's good for us, but ain't good for the bacteria. You get what I'm saying? Anyways... let's get down to a scientific objective morality.
Sentient beings value being alive, and the sentient beings that truly don't value being alive are justified in that belief that they shouldn't be alive, like, someone who is in the jaws of an alligator who can't escape. They would be feeling more negative than positive value until they die, so they'd be justified in killing themselves. The thing is,
you only kill yourselves, in situations really like that, or you have an idea or something perceived that affects you in a certain way to where you feel like your power for existence is diminished to the point where you cannot continue. Like I think I mentioned before in this video, it's pretty mechanical. We understand it.
the potential people who should be in existence will not be in that predicament of having more negative than positive value until they die. Now,
And you act like that just only happens to a select few of us, where we get to experience the ultimate negative, instead of everyone getting to experience the ultimate negative. In some ways, I'd almost rather be killed by a crocodile than some of the ways I've seen other people go. So, yeah. A slow, lingering death in a nursing home sounds amazing.
let's establish one of the ideological thrusts of antinatalism. And what I take this thrust to be is
Finally, 6 minutes and a half in. Finally.
causing non-consensual inevitable suffering is bad. Now, I will grant that when you have a child, you are causing, technically, non-consensual inevitable suffering, at least in this day and age. But what I don't understand...
No, not at least in this day and age, at least forever. Since forever ago and forever in the future, as far as we can tell. Unless the way we perceive the world changes so fundamentally where we don't have something like this, which I can't even fathom, honestly. It'd just be pure conjecture on my part. It's not going to change. There's objectivity for you right there. Suffering and death are built into the game, dude. I don't know if you're paying attention or not, but that's the case. Like the bird in the bird feeder you have right there in the background wouldn't be out there hunting for seeds if it didn't have a gnawing desire to eat, which is kind of a suffering in and of itself. Take those seeds away and it's dead.
Is why that's necessarily bad. My reasoning for this is what follows. Requiring consent for something when the answer is virtually always yes makes no sense.
Virtually always yes. And what sense is that? Like, I could use this to justify rape. Like, every other time I've asked somebody to get, if I could fuck them, they said yes because sex is fun and great, but, well, she can't talk right now, so, you know what? I'm just gonna assume and just go ahead and do it. What? Now, obviously, this is just like a hypothetical. I'm not going around doing that, but still, like, that's basically what you just said. Like, well, it's been great every other time, so everyone else said yes every other time I've done something, so why not now? Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. And besides, once they're here, what are they going to say anyways? What if they say no? Then what?
Virtually everyone, at least in Western societies, in places where people can lead prosperous lives, where I'm in favor of natalism, will agree that they're glad they were born. They are glad they weren't swallowed. They are glad they weren't...
They're glad they weren't swallowed. I just wish my dad had a better pull-out game, that's all.
aborted, and they are glad they were conceived of. And I'm not saying that swallowing or abortion or not having kids is immoral, but even if, there is some...
Okay, we'll just keep going. My brain is just, like, turning gears right now, trying to figure out what the fuck he's going for.
Suffering involved, if the answer to the question of do you want to experience the suffering is yes, the vast majority of the time, then the consent can be inferred. There is absolute...
How can the consent be inferred? Really? How can that be inferred? You drop something here that has no idea what the fuck is going on, and they have no choice but to experience the suffering anyways. Once they're here, whether they agree to it or not, like, what? It's going to be quite a while before they can make a yes or no statement to whether or not they want to continue living, usually. Unless they're like an extremely mature child. But, no. I can tell you that any suffering I've experienced hurt way worse than I thought it would. Let's put it that way, and I would rather not.
Nothing wrong with that, because humans want to live and can offer a lot of good things to the world. I think it is a good thing to have kids if the decision is rational and you are epistemically justified in wanting to have kids. And it...
Decision is rational, and what would the rational justification be for having a child? Exactly. I'm waiting with bated breath.
It is truly what you want to the best of your knowledge, and it will not propagate overall suffering and the degradation of values. Now, that...
It will not propagate... Did I miss something? Hold up. Let me go back.
a good thing to have kids if the decision is rational and you are epistemically justified in wanting to have kids, and it is truly what you want to the best of your knowledge, and it will not propagate overall suffering and the degradation of values.
Okay, first off, it's going to propagate more overall suffering. That's just a given. Even at the beginning, where you're like, oh yeah, well, they're guaranteed suffering. Well, yeah, then you just sort of contradicted yourself right there. I don't understand. And values, like values of what? What values? What are you talking about?
Now, that is my debunk of the antinatalist argument that is solely considering the being in question that would be born.
Well, yeah. What else would we consider here? What, the fact that your parents might have won't be able to take baby photographs afterwards or something? Won't get to walk you to school on your first day of kindergarten, shit like that? I guess we just left that out of the loop. Sorry.
There are other antinatalist arguments focusing more on what commonly is perpetuated by having children. So this is where antinatalists make environmental arguments and things of that nature.
And you're gonna find me not giving a shit.
And I think that these kinds of arguments are also very weak. You can go on and on about
Me too.
what the average individual does, causing horrible suffering, perpetuating the animal holocaust, just all out degradation of values. And these are
Again, what degradation of what values, though? You never did explain it.
arguments are all well and good when you're talking to someone who is actually going to raise such an individual. If you think that
And you think you're going to raise such an individual. You're talking to a guy who's raised in a very hardcore Catholic environment. Guess who's not a Catholic anymore? This guy. Like, I was a cradle Catholic, alright? Born into it. Went to Mass, like, several times a week. Not just Sunday. I mean, we're talking, like, sometime, for a while there, I went every fucking day. Guess who isn't a Catholic anymore? So how do you think you're going to be able to impress your values upon your children when they're their own person? Like, if you raised them to be vegan, eventually they might just say, fuck you, Mom and Dad, I'm going to fucking eat a hamburger tonight. Suck one. Yeah, because we know teenage kids aren't rebellious whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. But, I don't know, how can you necessarily prove that? I can already tell you, though, that they are going to experience suffering and eventual death once they're here. Once that potential becomes actual, they're fucked. It's really as easy as it gets. But as far as whatever values you're trying to push, like, who knows? Maybe they'll stick to them, maybe they won't. I don't adhere to a lot of the values my parents have. I can tell you that much right now. And I'm 30. So, and I don't see myself regressing back to those days where they held those sort of what I consider to be archaic values of whatever, going to church every fucking day. So, I don't know. It depends on if you can really get it across to your kids. I'm not saying veganism or whatever is stupid, but I'm saying you act like they're going to be mini-me's. Again, this is what I hear all the time. Like, your kids are going to be like you. When they're their own person, do you consider yourself a mini-me of your parents? Probably not. You'd probably be insulted if I said that. So why do you do that to your kids? Why does any parent do that to their kids, I wonder?
the average person's lifestyle is probably reflexive of how my potential child's lifestyle would be like, you are dead wrong. I am pro-natalism. That does not mean I am pro-raising your child to disrespect sentient life. And if you think no matter how...
It seemed like you just immediately disrespected sentient life because you don't understand how the game is played. It's a game of, strong eat and exploit weak. Now, you may pretend or imagine that you're strong or whatever, but that may not be the reality. By and large, you're probably somebody like the rest of us listening who is exploited by someone at a job to earn a profit for someone else. You get a little bit of a cut, of course, just so you don't die. And you continue that until, you may get lucky enough to have enough money to retire, God willing, however you want to phrase that. Or maybe you'll find an idea that'll get you out of it. But really, at the end of the day, like, even all the plants and shit you ate, and all that sort of stuff, ate, all that sort of stuff, that came at the cost of that plant's life. And if you think, well, I just eat, like apples or stuff that grows off trees and stuff, unless you're gardening it yourself and canning it yourself, somebody's getting exploited having to pick those vegetables for you. Usually, people who are unskilled migrant laborers, at least in the United States. I assume you're in the United States or Canada at least. That's just how it works. It'd break it to you, but that's just the way the game is played. You're here, you do your little tap dance, and then you're ground up. That's the end of the story. Sorry, and it's usually not a fun process.
Well, you raise your child, they will always do more horrible things than good things? That's complete nonsense. How a child is raised is one of the most determinate factors, if not the most determinate factor, in how a child behaves in childhood and in adult life.
Not always. I mean, you could look at, like, even people like us. One of the examples I can think of immediately is Schopenhauer, where he talks about character motivations, where I'm not going to disagree necessarily that everything that happens in a child's life isn't going to determine what happens later on in their life, but there are certain other things that will that sort of drive people to do the shitty, horrible things. Like, I'm thinking of like someone like a Jeffrey Dahmer, who, by all accounts that I can think of, had good parents, a decent life, and all that sort of stuff. Yet he went around and ate and killed other gay men. So it's a mixed bag. You don't always know what you're going to get. You could be the best parents out there. I remember actually not too long ago, I saw a story about some girl who got perfect grades, did all this sort of shit. It was like, had a good family and upper class, all this sort of shit, and went into a elderly woman's house and beat her to death. For no reason that we can find. This shit just happens. Sorry. I hate to break it to you. And there's no guarantee that just because you raised your kid right, they're going to turn out all right. I'm not saying that they never will. I'm not saying that's not a possibility. But there's also a possibility in the other direction too, which people of your type seem to overlook a lot.
Want to know why we have an obesity problem? Look at the fucking kid's parents. You want to know why your girlfriend cheated on you? Look at what her father did to her, or look at how her family operated when she was a child.
Okay, with the obesity thing, I eat like whatever the fuck I want, and I am skinny as a rail. Well, not skinny as a rail. I'm fairly slim. Alright, I'm not super scrawny. But I eat whatever the fuck I want, and I can get away with it. Some people can't. Some people will eat like I know people who eat one meal a day and are like 200 something pounds. Like, obviously overweight for their size. Luck of the draw there. And their parents may have fed them better than mine. I have no idea. And I don't remember eating healthy Whole Foods food when I was a kid either. So, and as far as cheating goes, well, you have to look at relationship dynamics if you want to get into that. But it's really just a power thing. And also, okay, in a nutshell, and some people may disagree with me, but men in general just want to spread their seeds far and wide. You know what I'm saying? They don't, you can see men of all stripes just going after whoever. They don't care. I'm not going to say I'm innocent there either. Women, they want the best quality mate they can find to try to, raise their offspring. Or the best quality, seed. And then maybe find somebody to try to provide for. That kind of stuff. It's not just in humans. There's other species as well that do the same thing. And you can look at that too. It's not just coming down to what the dad did all the time. Or what the parents did. The mechanism of life is not all goody two-shoe, happy-go-lucky. In fact, it's more or less quite the opposite, really. The more you look at it, it's kind of a horrible game we're playing. Just kill your expectations now of anything but a good time here.
Want to know why gang violence is such an issue in America? Look at what's around these individuals. Poverty, drugs, robbery, murder, etc. You may have data...
Yep, and no way to get out of that, yeah.
...on how the general population acts, but you have absolutely no data on how my kids or anybody who I would support having children's kids would act in society.
And neither do you. Do you have kids? Can you tell me how they act? Okay then, how in the hell would I know? This is just, for somebody who's all about objective this and that, and reality and science. Why are we throwing that out the window as soon as it comes to your kids?
Some people will do more harm than good on this earth. Don't let that trick you into thinking that every single person who will ever be born on this planet will do more harm than good, because that's...
Well, I think it seems to be skewed towards that direction. For every, Ted Bundy, or actually a whole bunch of serial killers, murderers, rapists, like there's a whole slew of people that are filling the jails right now. But you only get like one Albert Einstein. Or maybe an Immanuel Kant. Like, how often do we get people like that? Rarely. Very rarely.
It's not necessarily true. Don't expect someone to raise Hitler because they might raise a Martin Luther King or a Gary Yourofsky. And before anyone says, hey, it's more likely that your kid will do more bad than good, again, you have absolutely no evidence for that claim. If you raise a child in a particular way, the child will be likely to do more good than bad.
Likely. Not guaranteed, but likely. Obviously, you can kind of push or skew the wheel in that direction. I'm not a gambler, so I don't know all the references, but you can kind of skew the odds in your favor a little bit towards that. But sometimes you just get a bad draw. Whatever, it happens. And when you look at the outcomes of life, what the actual outcome of it is, it amounts to basically nothing. And you suffered and toiled and died for basically nothing, really. At the end of the day, for what? And you also have absolutely no evidence based on how you parent your kids that they're going to turn out good either. So I guess we're kind of at an impasse, or we're kind of at a tie. Oh man, sorry I had to cough. Allergy medicine should be kicking in. I think it is a little bit, but it's just the drowsy effect. So anyways, let's keep going.
Bad. Now, the last thing I want to address is adoption versus creation, because I have never actually addressed the adoption argument on this channel.
Ooh, this ought to be good.
And the talking point would, of course, go along the lines of, why waste resources by creating beings when you could have used those resources to help those beings in orphanages? Or these kids don't have parents, so why don't you be their parents instead of creating a new being to be parents to, and things of that nature? Now, this argument falls apart when you look into the actual application of it. So let's say there's a couple. They are epistemically justified in wanting to have a child, meaning they actually want to have a child. They're most likely not going to regret it. This child would most likely propagate more fulfillment of
So that's the justification. They want a child. That was it. Okay.
values than degradation of them, and this couple wants to have a biological child for whatever reason. To tell these people that they should adopt would not be for the best. If they do not want to adopt, they don't have to, because one, if they really don't want to adopt and they're convinced by you, so they don't adopt or have a virtuous child, that's a lose-lose-lose.
Again, now you're just sort of presupposing shit here. If they don't adopt or have a virtuous child, isn't that kind of loaded right there? What evidence do you have to support that they're going to have a virtuous child? And again, what are these values and what does virtuous mean necessarily to you? I don't know.
Situation. It's a loss for the parents, it's a loss for the potential child, and it's also
How's it a loss for the potential child? I'm not sitting around crying and lamenting the fact that my potentially billions of fucking brothers and sisters aren't here with me right now. Are you? No. What did they lose? They lost nothing. They were basically nothing. Or really, they were nothing. They don't exist. So what did they lose? They don't lose anything. You don't lose anything until you become a something, okay? I'm sorry I'm not going to use the flowery terms you do, but that's really the gist of it. And maybe the parents do lose out, but what about the kids, all those kids in orphanages getting abused or whatever through like CPS or whoever the fuck? Yeah, I'm sure they're not losing out at all, are they?
loss for all other sentient beings that this potential child would have.
Yeah, are we lamenting the loss of all these, like I jerked off the other day, were you lamenting the loss of the millions of fucking potential would-be children? If any, like George Carlin said, if any every chick who ever had her period, were you lamenting the loss of those? They have like 500 in their lifetime. That's like 500 fucking kids gone. Our tear ducts would just be dried up. We'd have to rehydrate just to fucking, keep crying at the rate what you're talking about. What did we lose? Nothing. There was nothing lost.
Have benefited overall. And two, if they decide to adopt despite not wanting to, how do you think the parents will feel? And how do you think the odds are that the child would feel wanted and like the parents want the child to be there despite the parent?
Then in that case, I would say maybe you shouldn't I would just lay out the hard facts of life. The very blunt, easy to understand for anybody, not using this waffly bullshit language to try to, camouflage what I'm actually saying, to try to make myself sound smarter. I'd say, look what you're doing all day. You toil every day. I hear you bitch endlessly about your job. about dealing with traffic, about having to pay bills, about having to do this, that, and the other thing, and you think your kids are going to escape that. And on top of that, you also got the suffering bit, which everyone experiences, and the eventual death that everyone likes to try to deny and forget. Your kid is going to experience that too. Easy peasy, really easy to understand. Most people aren't having a good time here, so it's really not that hard of a sell for antinatalism for some people. But a lot of people are deep in denial and try to isolate any sort of bad outcomes that may happen to them or theirs. So that's the trouble I have with a lot of them more than anything. But anymore, I think we're starting to become more accepting overall as a species or a society, whatever you want to call it, however you want to phrase it. But yeah, really, if they don't want to have an adopted kid and they're going to treat the adopted kid like shit, obviously, I'm going to be like, don't do it then. Why don't you just enjoy being child-free? I would point them to child-free people if they really couldn't take any sort of, heavy metal stuff. Point them in that direction. But at the end of the day, I can't really stop them. I can only make the case as to why they shouldn't have a kid, but I'm not going to be in their bedroom fucking eyeing them, slapping his dick out of her vagina or something to stop it. Like, I can't do much. I can only make the case and move on with my life from there. I may not like the decision they make, but there's not much I can really honestly do about it. I'm just a guy on the internet putting my shit out there. And if there was a couple like that, I would obviously encourage them not to have kids. And if they really felt like they shouldn't adopt, I would try to point them to maybe a child-free sort of thing. It's like, dude, you could take all these fancy vacations everywhere with your wife or girlfriend or whoever and do that instead of having kids. Or have them maybe even talk to new parents. That might be enough to dissuade them. I know actual mothers who regret having children, okay? So, in my real life, not just on some forum somewhere, but in real life. So, it wouldn't be that hard for me to do.
Parents not wanting this child to be there. Granted, the child may feel unwanted among other negative emotions in the current state of orphanages, but that doesn't mean you should make yourself and possibly them suffer by bringing them into your house. That's a horrible way to go about it.
If you don't feel like someone like myself, I do not have the time to take care of a kid. I'm a single dude, live on my own. As much as I wouldn't mind, like if I wanted to ever have a kid, I would do that. But if my partner or, whatever, my wife, girlfriend, whoever, you name it, is just not about having kids at all, I guess I'm not adopting. It's as simple as it gets. And also not having kids cuts down on the number of orphans out there or number of kids put into foster care. So there you go. That's another win.
Anything, you should just try to reform the child care system to be in an ideal state for the prosperity of these children, and then the children are being raised by trained professionals who know what they're doing, and these
yeah, and I guess this is where we veer out of reality. Again. Oh boy. Whew. Yeah, nice one, dude. Like that'll happen.
Children would probably live a better life than the average child would. I think if orphanages were prosperous, that would obviously be greatly preferable to how they are now.
Yeah, it would, but is that going to actually happen, though?
So I obviously think orphanages should be a lot better, but just because most are not...
I mean, yeah, I think it should be a lot better, but what does that get me? Nothing, really. It doesn't get me a damn thing. If you increase funding to orphanages, I'm willing to bet that a lot of that would find a lot of that funding would end up in the wrong pockets. Let's put it that way. Really, I mean, we'd have to have a total reform of a lot of these things. Yeah, I just don't see what you're saying happening, really.
Good right now, that does not mean that the best thing to do is to adopt a child if you don't want to adopt a child for the reasons I put forth earlier.
And, yeah, I agree. Having kids in general is not for everyone. I can agree with some in this video. Yeah, you're right. Nothing against you here.
So, in conclusion, antinatalism is wrong. Get over it.
No, it isn't. You had nothing to stand on, so get over that.
Alright guys, that's basically the end of the video. Make sure to like, comment, share.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna skip that part. Yeah, long story short, I think there's a reason there is 72 dislikes on this. Just looking through some of the comments here real quick. Just another YouTuber 3 is here. I swear he's like on a lot of these videos. He's very active comment. Oh, Steve Godfrey is back. Yeah. Oh, I guess he double posted. I thought he put 2 comments. Okay. And of course he didn't respond to Steve Godfrey. I don't agree with him on some of his shit, but he is a pretty smart dude. Okay, I'll just read his comment because I think it's probably one of the better ones. Referring back to 710, even if there is some suffering involved, if the answer to the question, do you want to experience the suffering, is yes, the vast majority of the time, then consent can be inferred. Holy shit. I was making fun of his speech problems, and here I am. But anyways, the concept of consent requires at least 2 elements. The person to whom consent attaches is identifiable, and the consent is given prior. If either of these criteria aren't met, consent isn't in play. Yeah, there you go. Duh, he said it better than I could have. When it comes to the consequences of being made to exist, the 2 consent criteria can't be met. So asking, can consent be inferred, is meaningless. The correct question is, does the fact we can't gain consent mean we're free to do without it? Really? Yeah, pretty much. Leaving aside the matter of procreation for a moment, what kind of society would we have if a fundamental principle was it's morally acceptable to expose people to inevitable harm when it's impossible to get their consent? I hope most of us reject that because of where it inevitably leads. Assuming you agree that it's not a good principle, why do you agree when it comes to making people exist? I honestly should have just read that comment and called it a day on this video. Yeah, exactly. Well, he's throwing out all this shit, but at the end of the day, it's just empty words. Vacuous. Nothing there. No, he didn't disprove antinatalism remotely. About the only point I agreed with him on is if you and your partner, or maybe just you, want a kid, but you decide not to have your own, but you can't see yourself adopting, then don't adopt. It's fucking easy to get, obviously. So, yeah, other than that, I think I'm done. It's been a while, so probably kind of a rusty response, but I will definitely try to get around to fucking Last Call for Heroes. God damn. It's like that Lauren Southern video. It's become my white whale, like my other one. So I'll get to it at some point. But anyways, yeah, that's that. So thanks for listening. Have a good one.